In today's video, I'm going to do a walkthrough of the Math with Calculator section from SAT Practice Test 1. I've scored perfectly on back-to-back SAT Math sections, and as I go through these questions, I'm going to show you the most efficient way to answer each and every one. So with all that being said, make sure to like and subscribe, and let's go ahead and get started with question number 1. John runs at different speeds as part of his training program. The graph shows his target heart rate at different times during his workout. On which interval is the target heart rate strictly increasing, then strictly decreasing? Well, strictly increasing would mean a line with a positive slope, and then strictly decreasing would mean that we'd have a negative slope. So we can't have it plateau, we can't have it level off. We see in that first interval from 0 to 40, we have it level off. We see from, looks to be 65 to 75, we also level off there, so we can't pick any time there. And we see we're also leveling off from 85 to, it looks to be 95. So a period where we're strictly increasing and then strictly decreasing would be from 40 to 60. So we see that's going to be answer choice B. So B will be our correct answer there. Moving on to number 2, we have if y is equal to kx, where k is a constant and y is 24 when x is 6, what is the value of y when x is 5? All right, well, we can go ahead and plug in y is 24, so we'll have 24 equals k times x. We know that x is 6, so we'll have k times 6. We can divide each side by 6 to solve for k. 24 over 6 will leave us with 4 as the value of k. Now from here, we know that y is equal to 4, since k is 4, times x. Now we're asked for the value of y when x is 5. We can go ahead and plug in 5 for x. So we'll have y is equal to 4 times 5. And we see that y will equal 20. So our answer for number 2 will be C. All right, moving on to number 3. So we've got a figure above with lines L and M are parallel and lines S and T are parallel. If the measure of angle 1 is 35 degrees, what is the measure of angle 2? All right, well, we see that angle of measure 1 corresponds to this angle measure right here that I'm also putting in blue. So we can go ahead and mark both of those as 35 degrees. All right, next up. We know that we have to solve for the angle of measure 2. Well, the angle measure 2, I'm going to put in orange. We know that that corresponds to this angle measure in orange that I also just put next to that 35. Now we know that we form a semicircle that I'm putting in green there. So we can go ahead and do 180 degrees minus that 35 degrees. That's from that blue angle to give us our orange angle, which we see is going to be the measure of angle 2. And that's going to be 180 minus 35, which will leave us with 145 as our answer. So our answer there is going to be D for the measure of angle 2. Moving on to number 4 now. We have if 16 plus 4x is 10 more than 14, what is the value of 8x? So we can go ahead and write this out. So we're going to have 16 plus 4x, and we know that that's equal to 10 more than 14. It's equal to 10 more than 14. So that'd be 14 plus 10, which we know is equal to 24. Now we got to solve for 8x. So in order to solve for 8x, what I see is that that's a double 4x. So I'm going to find what 4x is and then just double that. So I'll go ahead and subtract 16 from each side. And I see that's going to leave me with 4x is equal to 8. So now that I know 4x is equal to 8, I can just double 4x. That's going to give me 8x. And then I just double 8. Doubling 8 is going to give me 16. I see 8x is 16. So my answer there is going to be C for number 4. All right, moving on to number 5 now. So we've got which of the following graphs best shows a strong negative association between D and D. A strong negative association, I'll just go ahead and show you, would look something like this. Okay, it's going to be everything real concentrated together and really going down. Okay, so it looks something like that. It's not going to be that spread out. So let's go ahead and take a look at our answer choices. We see that B doesn't even show that negative association. We see C shows a positive association, and we see that D is showing that strong, which means that they're really collected close to each other, and negative correlation. Okay, answer choice A isn't strong. That's why A is wrong. A is negative correlation or negative association, but it's not strong. Okay, so our answer there for 5 is going to be D. Number 6 now. A hospital stores one type of medicine in 2 decagram containers. Based on the information given in the box above, about how many 1 milligram doses are there in one 2 decagram container? All right, so what we're going to want to do here is use canceling of units. So we want to know how many 1 milligram doses there are in one 2 decagram container. All right, well, in 1 decagram, we know that there are 10 grams. Next thing we know is that 1 gram is 1,000 milligrams. So in 1 decagram then, we have 10, so 1 decagram, so I'll put 1 dg for decagram. We know that that's equal to 10 grams times, we've got 1 gram, because we got to cancel out our grams. Okay, we got to cancel our grams per 1,000 milligrams. So I'll put mg for milligrams. And keep in mind, we want to get our number of milligrams in 1 decagram and then just multiply it by 2 to solve for the number of 1 milligram doses in one 2 decagram container. All right, so from here I see I've got 10 times 1,000, so that's going to give me in 1 decagram container, I'm going to have 10,000 milligrams. Keep in mind, I have a 2 decagram container, which means that I'm going to have 20,000 milligrams. And I need the number of 1 milligram doses, which is going to be that 20,000 then. So my answer for number 6 will be D. So keeping in mind, we're canceling units there to make sure we're getting to our correct answer. All right, number 7, we have rooftop solar panels installations in 5 cities. The number of rooftops with solar panel installations in 5 cities is shown in the graph above. If the total number of installations is 27,500, what is an appropriate label for the vertical axis of the graph? Well, that would be solar installations in, and then since we have 27,500, it would have to be in thousands. So solar installations in thousands. Okay, so we just got to find an answer choice that has that. Solar installations in thousands. Okay, it's not going to be in tens of thousands, because if it was tens of thousands, then we'd have already 90,000 from our first one. Okay, so it can't be tens of thousands. It's got to be just thousands. Hundreds would be too low, and tens would also be too low. Therefore, our answer's got to be C for number 7. All right, let's move on to number 8. Number 8 says, for what value of n is the absolute value of n minus 1 plus 1 equal to 0? Key thing to recognize here, since we have absolute value of n minus 1, that has to be positive. So we're taking a positive number and we're adding 1 to it. It will never equal 0. Okay, because we can't remove this 1 at all because we have that absolute value there. So the true answer here is that it's never going to be any value of n, which this is true. Because it's absolute value and we're adding to it, we can never equal 0. All right, moving on to number 9 now. So questions 9 and 10 refer to the following information. All right, I see in number 9 that I'm just going to end up rearranging for t. Okay, I see that because all my answer choices just have t equals, and I've got an equation up top. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that before I realize if I have to read this at all. Okay, so in order to solve for t here, what I got to do is I got to subtract 1,052 from each side. So I'm going to end up with a minus 1,052. And then after that, I got to divide each side by 1.08. So I'll divide each side by 1.08. Okay, so that's going to give me what t is equal to. So I'm going to find my answer choice that matches what I just wrote, and that's going to be answer choice A. So A will be my correct answer for 9. All right, moving on to question 10. At which of the following air temperatures will the speed of a sound wave be closest to 1,000 feet per second? Well, all we got to do is plug in 1,000 feet per second for our speed. So we can go ahead and do that. We know our speeds are represented by A. So we're going to use our equation from 9 because that's going to cut down on the amount of steps we have to take. So we plug in 1,000 for A. So we got 1,000 minus 1,052 all over 1.08. And that's going to give us our temperature. Okay, when we plug that into our calculator, that's going to give us negative 52 over 1.08, which will ultimately give us about negative 48 approximately. Okay, so we go look at our answer choices. We see negative 48 is going to be answer choice B, so our answer for number 10 will be B. All right, moving on to number 11. Which of the following numbers is not a solution of the inequality 3x minus 5 is greater than or equal to 4x minus 3? Well, to solve this, I always want to keep my coefficient in front of x positive, so I'm going to go ahead and subtract 3x from each side to give me x alone. Next thing I'm going to do is add 3 to each side. I've got negative 5 plus 3, which is going to give me negative 2. So I have negative 2 has to be greater than or equal to x. That means x has to be less than or equal to negative 2. Therefore, x cannot be negative 1. And I have to answer with what is not a solution, which is going to be A, negative 1. All right, number 12. We got the number of seeds in each of 12 apples. We got number of apples on our y-axis, and then we got the number of seeds on that x-axis. So based on the histogram above, of the following, which is closest to the average, which is the arithmetic mean number of seeds per apple. So to do this, I need to get my total number of apples, and then I also have to have my total number of seeds. So to get my total number of seeds, we're going to go ahead and do our number of apples times our number of seeds. So we're going to have right here 2 times 3, that's going to give us 6. Next up, we're going to have a 5 times 4, that's going to give us 20. We're going to have down here a 6 times 1, that's going to give us 6. We're going to have a 7 times 2, that's going to give us a 14. And then we're going to have a 9 times 3, which will give us a 27. I can go ahead and combine my 6's. That'll get me a 12. I'll go ahead and add 20 to that. I'll go ahead and add 14 to that. Okay, 12 plus 20 is going to give me 32. 32 plus 14 is going to give me 46. And then I've still got to add my 27. Okay, so when I add my 46 to 27, 46 plus 27, that's going to end up giving me 73. So now I've got 73 divided by my number of apples. I see that my number of apples is going to be 2 plus 4 plus 1 plus 2 and then plus 3. Okay, so I can go ahead and group these together. 3, 2, and 1, that's going to give me 6, and a 4 and a 2 is going to give me 6. So I'm going to have 73 over 12. I can go ahead and plug that into my calculator. So I got 73 over 12, and I see that's going to give me right around 6. Okay, 6.08. So the closest to that average is going to be 6. Okay, so I'm going to have 6 seeds per apple. All right, moving on to number 13. So we got a big old table here. We got the group of 7th grade students responded to a survey that asked which math course they were currently enrolled in. The survey data was broken down in the table above. Which of the following categories accounts for approximately 19% of all the survey respondents? Okay, keep in mind all the survey respondents is going to be that 310. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my total number of survey respondents of 310, multiply it by 0.19 to solve for the number of people I'm looking for in my table. So I'll plug that into my calculator here. When I do that, I am going to get 58.9. Okay, so I'm going to be looking for right around 59 people. Okay, so 59 people I see is going to be males taking geometry. So I go ahead and find my answer. That's going to be C, males taking geometry. Number 14. Okay, we've got a table of lengths of fish in inches. So the table lists the lengths to the nearest inch of a random sample of 21 brown bullhead fish. The outlier measurement of 24 inches is an error. Of the mean median range of the values listed, which will change the most if the 24-inch measurement is removed from the data? Well, the things that's going to change the most here is not going to be the mean. Okay, the mean is the average. That's not going to shift much by taking away this really large value. That's, obviously an error. And the same thing with the median. The median is not going to shift much, but the range is going to go from being 8 to 24, which is a range of 16, to now only being 8 to 16, which is a range of 8. So the range is going to get split in half. Okay, so the range is what's going to change the most if that 24-inch measurement is removed from the data. All right, moving on to number 15 here. So we've got a graph. So we've got total cost of renting a boat by the hour. So what does the C-intercept represent in the graph? Well, that's where if you rented the boat for 0 hours, that's how much it would cost. Okay, so that's going to be the initial cost of renting the boat, which is answer choice A. It's not the total number of boats rented. It's not the total number of hours the boat is rented. And it's not the increasing cost to rent the boat for each hour. Okay, answer choice D would be the slope. Okay, our correct answer here is A. That's our initial cost. Before we even take it on the water, before we rent it for any number of hours, that's our cost. And then we got question 16, which represents the relationship between H and C. Well, we see that our total cost, which is C, is equal to our slope. Okay, we gotta get our slope here. So we see as we go over by 1 hour, we go up by a cost of $3. So that's gonna be 3H plus our y-intercept, which we see is at 5. So our answer there is gonna be C is equal to 3H plus 5, which is answer choice C. All right, number 17, the complete graph of the function f is shown in the xy plane. For what value of x is the value of f of x at its minimum? We see that f of x is at its minimum right here, where I'm putting this blue dot, right? I'll go ahead and circle that. Now we see that that is at not -1, not -2, but at -3. Okay, so the answer here is going to be f of -3, which is going to be answer choice B. All right, moving on to number 18 now. We've got an xy plane. If 0, 0 is a solution to the system of equations above, which of the following relationships between A and B must be true? Well, let's go ahead and plug in 0 and 0. Okay, so we've got 0 and 0. We see that A has to be positive. Okay, we can go ahead and plug in 0 and 0 here, and we see that B has to be negative. So if A's got to be positive and B has to be negative, well, then we know that A's got to be greater than B, okay, because A is positive and B is negative. So our answer for number 18 has to be A. Moving on to number 19, a food truck sells salads for $6.50 each. So I'm going to go ahead and put 6.5 S for salads. Okay, that's an S, not a 5. And drinks for $2 each, so plus $2 per drink. All right, the food truck's revenue from selling a total of 209 salads and drinks in one day, so I know S plus D for salads plus drinks is going to equal 209, was $836.50. So it's equal to $836.50. How many salads were sold that day? Key thing here, we want to solve for salads first. That means we need to come up with what D is equal to, so we can go ahead and substitute S in as the variable for D. All right, well, we can go ahead and subtract S from each side in this equation with 209, and we're going to have 209 minus S is equal to D. Now we can go ahead and substitute that in. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to have, instead of D, we're going to have 209 minus S. So I'm going to go ahead and move all this over. So I have 209 minus S, and that's going to equal 836.5. All right, so from here, we can just go ahead and distribute our 2. So we're going to have 2 times 209. That's going to end up giving us 418. Now keep in mind, we're going to end up subtracting that from each side. So subtracting 418 from each side. Next up, we're going to have 2 times that negative S. Okay, that's an S, not a 5. So that's going to give us negative 2S. So 6.5S minus 2S is going to leave us with 4.5S. So now we're going to have 4.5S. Okay, that's an S, is equal to 836.5 minus 418. So I'm going to plug that into my calculator. So we got 836.5 minus 418. Looks like, okay, yep, and that's going to give us 418.5. We divide that then by 4.5, and that's going to give us 93. Okay, so I'll go ahead and write this out. So that's going to give us 418.5. We divide each side by 4.5, divide each side by 4.5. Okay, and that's going to end up giving us 93 for our value of S. Okay. So the number of salads that we sold then was 93, so our answer for 19 is B. All right, moving on to number 20. Alma bought a laptop computer at a store that gave a 20% discount off its original price. The total amount she paid to the cashier was P dollars, including an 8% sales tax on the discounted price. Which of the following represents the original price of the computer in terms of P? All right, well, P is the price that she paid, and we know that that's equal to 0.8, since she got 20% discount, times our original price, which we're going to represent as X. So we're going to put X equals original price. I'll put original price. All right, next up, we know that she also had to pay 8% sales tax, so she had to multiply that by 1.08 for that 8% sales tax. All right, so now from here, we just have to solve for what X equals. So to do that, we got to obviously divide then by 0.8 and then also by 1.08. Okay, now when we do that, we see we're going to be left with X, and we're going to have P over 0.8 times 1.08. Okay, we find our answer choice that has that, and we see that that's going to be answer choice D. So D will be our correct answer for 20. All right, moving on to number 21. We've got dreams recalled during 1 week. So you've got the data in the table was produced by sleep researchers studying the number of dreams people recall when asked to record their dreams for 1 week. Group X consisted of 100 people who observed early bedtimes. Group Y consisted of 100 people who observed later bedtimes. If a person is chosen at random, that's important, from those who recalled at least one dream, okay, so keep in mind that that's from those who recalled at least one dream, okay, so that's going to be from everything to the right of the none column, okay. Now, what is the probability that that person belonged to group Y? Okay, so they recalled at least one dream. What's the probability that they were from group Y? Well, we see that we have a total number of people who recalled at least one dream of 39 plus 125. So that'll be our denominator, 39 plus 125. Now our numerator is going to be the odds that they're from group Y, which we see is 11 plus 68. Okay, 11 plus 68. So now all we got to do is simplify this down. Okay, so 68 plus 11. I can just quick check. Okay, we do have to add them. So 68 plus 11 is ultimately going to give us 79. 39 plus 125 is ultimately going to give us 164. So we're going to have 79 over 164. Our answer there is going to be C. All right, moving on to question 22. Questions 22 and 23 refer to the following information. We've got annual budgets for different programs in Kansas, 2007 to 2010. Question 22 says, which of the following best approximates the average rate of change in the annual budget for the agriculture or natural resources in Kansas from 2008 to 2010? All right, well, we need average rate of change from 2008 to 2010 for agriculture, which is going to be that first row. Okay, well, we see that we have a starting value of 358,708 and an ending value of 488,106. So we're going to take that 488,106 and we have to subtract our initial value, which was 358,708, and then we have to divide that by the number of years, which is 2, okay? 2010 minus 2008 gives us 2 years. Now that's going to give us our average rate of change. So let's go ahead and plug that into our calculator. And that's going to give us 64,699. And keep in mind that that's in thousands of dollars, okay? That's in thousands of dollars. So because that's in thousands of dollars, we got to add 3 zeros on at the end. And we see our answer there is going to be B for number 22. All right, moving on to number 23. Of the following, which program's ratio of its 2007 budget to its 2010 budget is closest to the human resource program's ratio of its 2007 budget to its 2010 budget? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the human resources ratio. Okay, we see that we've got, first up, our 2007 budget of about 4 million there. Keep in mind it's in tens of thousands, so it'd be 4 billion. And then we take a look at 2010, okay, and we've got that right around 6 million, which since it's in thousands of dollars, would be 6 billion. So we see that we increased there by about 50%. So we're going to look for another category where we increased by about 50% from 2007 to 2010. So we're just going to go down the rows, okay? So we'll start with agriculture. We see from there we did not increase by about 50%, so we can go ahead and get rid of that one. Next up, in education, we see that we did increase by pretty much about 50%, so that's probably going to be our correct answer. We'll keep going, see if there's anything that looks any closer. We see general government does not increase by about 50%. We see highways and transportation doesn't, and then we also see public safety increases by more than 50%. Therefore, our answer there's got to be education, so our answer is going to be B. All right, moving on to number 24. Which of the following is an equation of a circle in the xy plane with center 0, 4 and radius endpoint 4/3 and 5? Well, let's go ahead and get started with our center. So we know the equation of our circle is going to be x minus h squared for our x coordinate of our center being h. We see that that's going to be 0, so we're just going to have x squared, right? We've already got that in all our answer choices. Then it's going to be plus y minus k squared. Okay, we know that k in this case is 4, so we should have y minus 4 squared. Therefore, we can get rid of d and we can get rid of b. Now we're between a and c. So in order to get this, we got to solve for our radius. Okay, keep in mind we've got a radius endpoint and we've also got our center. So we just got to solve for the distance between 0, 4 and 4/3 and 5. And when we solve for that distance, that gives us our radius. Okay, so we see when we go from 0 to 4/3. Okay, so I'll go ahead and plot this out. We'll have 0, 4, just so you can see it visually. And then we're going to 4/3. So go ahead and put 4/3 right here. Okay, 4/3 and then 5. Okay, so it's going to be 5 up. So we'll go 5 there. Okay, so 4/3 5 will be the point here. 4/3 and 5. All we got to do now is solve for that distance. So we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem here. Okay, we see that we're going over by 4/3, so that'll be a one-side length, and we're going up then by 1. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and square each of those and then take the square root to use that Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so 4/3 squared plus 1 squared plus 1 squared is going to give us that radius squared. Okay, and keep in mind, we actually don't have to solve for the radius. We just need the radius squared. So 4/3 squared we know is going to give us 16/9 plus 1. Okay, we can rewrite 1 as 9/9. 9/9, which when we add those together, now that we have a common denominator, is going to give us 25/9 as radius squared. Okay, so our answer there has to be answer choice A. All right, on to question 25. The equation above expresses the approximate height h in meters of ball t seconds after it is launched vertically upward from the ground with an initial velocity of 25 meters per second. After approximately how many seconds will the ball hit the ground? When the ball hits the ground, its height is 0. So we're going to plug in a 0 for h. From here, we see that we can factor out a t. Okay, we could rewrite this as t times negative 4.9 t and then plus 25. Okay, now keep in mind, we're looking for a point in time after 0. So what we can do then is we can take that negative 4.9 t plus 25, negative 4.9 t plus 25, set it equal to 0. And now all we've got to do is solve for t. So we're going to go ahead and subtract 25 from each side. And we're going to get negative 25 is equal to negative 4.9 t. Now from there, all we got to do is divide each side by negative 4.9. Divide each side by negative 4.9. We can plug that into our calculator, or we can just kind of see that negative 25 over negative 4.9, that's about negative 25 over negative 5, and we see that's going to be about 5. So our answer there would be D for our value of t. Okay, keep in mind t is time. So our answer there is D for 25. It would be about 5 seconds. All right, on to question 26. Katerina is a botanist studying the production of pears by 2 types of pear trees. She noticed that type A trees produced 20% more pears than type B trees produced. Based on Katerina's observation, if the type A trees produce 144 pears, how many pears did the type B trees produce? Well, we know that the type A trees are producing 20% more than type B trees are producing. So 1.2 times the number of pears that type B trees produced has to equal those 144 that type A trees produced. From here, all we got to do is divide each side by 1.2. Divide each side by 1.2. We can pull out our calculator, put that in, and we see that we're going to get an answer of 120 for the number of pears produced by type B trees. So our answer there is going to be B for number 26. All right, moving on to number 27 now. So we got which of the following is a reasonable approximation of the number of earthworms to a depth of 5 centimeters beneath the ground surface in the entire field. So we've got a square field is measured by 10 meters by 10 meters. 10 students each mark off a randomly selected region of the field. Each region is a square and has side lengths of 1 meter, and no 2 regions overlap. The students count the number of earthworms contained in the soil to a depth of 5 centimeters beneath the ground surface in each region. The results are shown in the table below. Which of the following is a reasonable approximation of the number of earthworms to a depth of 5 centimeters beneath the ground's surface in the entire field? Well, we're told that our entire field is 10 by 10 meters. So 10 meters by 10 meters is equal to 100 square meters. 100 square meters, okay, which we can put as meters squared. 100 square meters. Now, we got to find the average then in each of those square meters. Now we know that each of these regions is 1 meter by 1 meter. So that's 1 square meter. And we see that the average is going to be right around 150. So we got 150 worms per square meter. Keep in mind, I'm using canceling units once again to make sure I'm getting my correct answer. Now we want the entire field, so we got to multiply that entire field, which is 100 square meters. And we see then that we're going to get 15,000 worms. Okay, when we put that in our calculator, we're going to get 15,000. So our answer there is going to be C. All right, moving on to question 28. If the system of inequalities y is greater than or equal to 2x plus 1 and y is greater than 1 half x minus 1 is graphed in the xy plane above, which quadrant contains no solutions to the system? All right, well, the key thing here is the quadrant that contains no solutions. Well, which quadrants are going to contain solutions? Well, if we take a look at y is greater than or equal to 2x plus 1, if we were to graph that, we see that our plus 1 would be our y-intercept. Okay, and it's going to have a positive slope of 2x. Okay, now since y has to be greater than or equal to 2x plus 1, we would shade in all of this. Okay, now where is there no possible solution then for y is greater than or equal to 2x plus 1? Well, that's going to be in quadrant 4. Okay, so I'll mark that in red a minute so you can see what I'm referring to. We see that the solutions to y is greater than or equal to 2x plus 1 will never be in quadrant 4. Therefore, the solutions to the system will also never be in quadrant 4. So the answer there has to be answer choice C, okay? And I'll mark that in blue so you know that I'm not referring to it as a wrong answer, but the correct answer, okay? We will never have a solution in quadrant 4 because y is greater than or equal to 2x plus 1 we'll never have a solution in quadrant 4. All right, moving on to question 29. For a polynomial p of x, the value of p of 3 is negative 2. Which of the following must be true about p of x? Well, that's going to be that the remainder when p of x is divided by x minus 3 is negative 2. Now, this is a rule that you should try to memorize for the SAT, but another way you could get to this answer is by process of elimination with a through c. You see in a through c, it's all arguing for something as a factor of p of x. Well, a factor is only going to occur when the value of p of something is equal to 0. In this case, we have it's negative 2. So you already know a, b, and c are wrong, so you could use process of elimination to get to d. Otherwise, you should just try to memorize the rule where if you have a value of p of a number is some other number, then the remainder when p of x is divided by x minus that number in parentheses is going to be whatever p of that number is. All right, moving on to question 30. Which of the following is an equivalent form of the equation of the graph shown in the xy plane above from which the coordinates of vertex A can be identified as constants in the equation? Well, for starters, let's go and identify our vertex. We see our x-coordinate of our vertex is going to be 1. Okay, so I'll put vertex v, okay, v for vertex. Our x-coordinate's 1. We see our y-coordinate there is going to be at minus 16, okay? So from here, we just got to identify those as constants in our equation. We see the only choice, our only answer choice, where we have our 16 as well as our 1 is going to be answer choice D. Okay, so answer choice D has to be our correct answer. All right, moving on to question 31. Wyatt can husk at least 12 dozen ears of corn per hour and at most 18 dozen ears of corn per hour. Based on this information, what's a possible amount of time in hours that it could take Wyatt to husk 72 dozen ears of corn? Well, to do this question, what we want to do is make sure we're canceling units to have the equation set up correctly. So I'm going to put DEC for dozen ears of corn. We need 72 of them to be husked. Now, we're going to use a rate of 12. Okay, it says that his rate can be at least 12. We're going to use 12 because that's a factor of 72. Okay, so he's doing 12 dozen ears of corn per hour. Now, keep in mind, we want to solve for the number of hours. So from here, we see that our hours will cancel, right? So we see our equation set up correctly because we'd have dozen ears of corn is equal to dozen ears of corn. So now from here, we're going to divide each side by 12. Divide each side by 12. Okay, 72 over 12 is going to give us 6. So now we have 6 is equal to our number of hours. Therefore, our answer is going to be 6. All right, moving on to number 32 now. The posted weight limit for a covered wooden bridge in Pennsylvania is 6,000 pounds. A delivery truck is carrying X identical boxes, each weighing 14 pounds. So I'm going to go ahead and start writing out my equation. I'm going to have 14X. Okay, we know that its limit is 6,000 pounds. So the number of weight has to be less than or equal to that limit. All right, and then we have it will pass over the bridge if the combined weight of the empty delivery truck and its driver is 4,500 pounds. What is the maximum possible value for X? That will keep the combined weight of the truck, driver, and boxes below the bridge's posted weight limit. Well, we see that we've already got our equation set up, right? We've got that 6,000 has to be greater than or equal to 14X plus 4,500. I'll go ahead and subtract 4,500 from each side to start isolating my X. When I do that, I'm going to be left with 1,500 has to be greater than or equal to 14x. From there, I divide each side by 14. Divide each side by 14 to solve for x. Now we go ahead and plug that into our calculator. So I'll go ahead and do that. So we're going to have 1,500 divided by 14. And we see that's going to give us an answer of 107.14. Keep in mind, we can only have a whole number of boxes. We can't have a fraction of a box. Therefore, our answer for the value of x is going to be 107. So our answer will be 107. All right, moving on to question 33. According to the line graph above, the number of portable media players sold in 2008 is what fraction of the number sold in 2011? Well, let's go ahead and find our number sold in 2011. We see that that's going to equal 160 million. And in 2008, we see that we sold 100 million. All right, so what we're going to set up here is 100 for our number sold in 2008. Now, we need the fraction that it is of the number sold in 2011. So that fraction I'm going to put as x times the number sold in 2011, which is 160. Now from here, all we got to do is divide each side by 160 to get our answer. Divide each side by 160. We see that that's going to end up equaling 10 over 16. We know that 10 over 16 could also be rewritten as 5 over 8. So we see that 5 over 8 is going to be our value for the fraction for x, which is the fraction of the number sold in 2011 to give us the number sold in 2008. So our answer there is going to be 5 over 8 for number 33. All right, moving on to question 34. A local television station sells time slots for programs in 30-minute intervals. If the station operates 24 hours per day, every day of the week, what is the total number of 30-minute time slots the station can sell for Tuesday and Wednesday? Well, if we're operating for 24 hours each day and we're operating for Tuesday and Wednesday, that's 2 days, giving us a total of 48 hours. Now, keep in mind that we're selling time slots for 30 minutes apiece. 30 minutes is the same as 1/2 hour, okay? So 48 hours then, times the fact that we can fit in 2 intervals, okay? 2 of these time slot intervals per every hour, since each one's half an hour. That's going to give us our total number of intervals, as we can see, because our hours are going to cancel. Okay, we see our hours will cancel, thus giving us our total number of intervals as 96. So our 96 will be our answer for the number of time slots that we can sell for Tuesday and Wednesday. All right, moving on to number 35 now. Okay, so we have a dairy farmer uses a storage silo that is in the shape of a right circular cylinder. If the volume of the silo is 72 pi cubic yards, what is the diameter of the base of the cylinder in yards? All right, well, we know our volume of a cylinder, of a right circular cylinder, is going to be pi r squared times our height. Now, we're told that our volume is 72 pi, so we'll go ahead and plug that in. 72 pi. The next thing that we're told is that we have to solve for the diameter of the base. Now, in order to solve for the diameter, we need to get our radius. All right, now we see that our height is going to be 8 yards. So we can go ahead and plug in our height here. So we'll have times 8. Next thing we can do is divide each side by pi, and then also by 8. That's going to isolate that radius squared. Okay, so we'll divide each side by 8 pi. 8 pi. 72 over 8 is going to give us 9. Our pi's are going to cancel, so we're going to have 9 is equal to our radius squared. Therefore, we take our square root of each side to solve for our radius. We get that our radius is going to equal 3. Now from here, we need our diameter. We know our diameter is equal to 2 times our radius. 2 times 3 is going to give us 6 as our diameter. So the diameter of the base of the cylinder in yards is going to be 6. All right, moving on to question number 36. We've got, for what value of x is the function h above undefined? Well, it's going to be undefined where its denominator is equal to 0. Okay, so we can go ahead and set our denominator to equal to 0. Now from here, we've got x minus 5 squared. So to do that, we have to do x minus 5 times x minus 5. When we do that, we're going to end up with x squared minus 10x plus 25. Then we also have to take into account that we have to add 4x and subtract 20. So we'll go ahead and add 4x and subtract 20. Then we'll also have to add 4 as well. Okay, and that's going to be equal to 0. So let's go ahead and combine all our terms. So we're going to have x squared. There's only one term of that. We're going to have minus 10x and plus 4x. That's going to leave us with minus 6x. We're going to have plus 25 and minus 20. That's going to end up leaving us with a plus 5. And then we also have to add 4 to that as well. 5 plus 4 will give us a plus 9. Set that equal to 0. From here, we see that we can factor this down into x minus 3 squared. Therefore, what value of x is the function h above undefined? Well, we see that that's going to be where x is equal to 3. So our answer there is going to be 3 for number 36. All right, moving on to number 37. So we've got looks to be a financial question. So we've got questions 37 and 38 refer to the following. Jessica opened a bank account that earns 2% interest compounded annually. Her initial deposit was $100, and she uses the expression 100x power of t to find the value of the account after t years. What is the value of x in the expression? Well, x is going to be her interest. Okay, she's gaining 2% interest compounded annually. Therefore, x is going to be 1.02. Each year that goes by, the value of her money is going to increase by 2%. So the value of x in this expression will be 1.02 since her interest rate is 2%. Okay, Jessica's friend Tyshawn found an account that earns 2.5% interest compounded annually. Tyshawn made an initial deposit of $100 into this account. At the same time, Jessica made a deposit of $100 into her account. After 10 years, how much more money will Tyshawn's initial deposit have earned than Jessica's initial deposit? Round your answer to the nearest cent and ignore the dollar sign when grading your answer. All right. So all we got to do here is do a subtraction problem. Okay, they both initially deposited 100, so we can go ahead and put that down for both equations. We know that Tyshawn, though, is interesting. He's earning 2.5% interest. So his growth factor here is going to be 1.025 raised to the power of 10, because this is after 10 years for each of them. Okay, whereas Jessica is only earning 2% interest. So that's going to be in parentheses 1.02 raised to the power of 10 as well. So what we got to do here is we got to put this in our calculator. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Ultimately, that's going to give us our answer of 6.109, keeping in mind that we have to round it to the nearest cent. Okay, so since we have 6.109, we have to round it to 6.11. Okay, so our answer here is going to be 6.11. Hopefully this video was helpful. If it was, make sure to like and subscribe. In addition to that, if you're looking for private SAT prep, college essay editing, or college admission consulting, be sure to check out my website. The link is in the description. In addition to that, if you're gaining value from these videos, please consider donating. It helps me to be able to continue to put out these videos for free.